1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, boy, I just got this big yawn out, and I feel better now. Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the show. It is June 12th, a dreary Tuesday, and my sister Susan is joining us from Chicago, the title town. And we should say that Susan is feeling a little worse for wear, having apparently overindulged last evening. Hello, Susan.
Good morning.
Ha, ha, ha.
Don't I sound cheerful?
No, how you doing?
Well, I was enjoying myself much more last night.
Isn't that always the case? And then you have to ask, was it worth it? Was the joy and fun and frivolity of last night worth the misery of this morning?
Probably not. If I had just not
it was that
had
last
that
one.
last
I know
grappa.
It's always the last one. Grappa.
It was, and not only that, but this grappa was not grappa.
Really?
It was delicious.
Huh.
Tasted like really good sipping tequila, sort of.
Huh. Grappa. Yeah, you told me what is it made? It's an after dinner liqueur.
It's an after. Well, it depends. It's after dinner in most of the world, except for in Slovenia, where they will meet you at the door with grappa beforehand. So they use it as a aperitif. But I think it's better suited to after dinner.
Well, yeah, I think I only had it once. Right? Was that I don't think I've had it since.
You didn't have it the last time we were together?
I don't know. I can't remember. I remember the first only because there's video of it.
You'll be glad to know it's disintegrating, that video.
Oh, is it good?
We've got it on. We've managed to get what we could on a CD, but it would not before it had already sort of deteriorated. We should let everybody know what we're talking about. We were on a family vacation. And
we were celebrating Susan's 50th birthday.
My 50th birthday and
your 25th.
Our 25th wedding anniversary.
Right.
And everybody was there, and we had a delicious dinner, which ended with grappa, and after much wine and then the grappa, let's just say that our beloved Lynn was feeling very little, if any, pain.
I was having a hell of a time.
And my son had the good sense to get the whole thing on tape. It was very funny.
And I get the reason I guess I kept saying this grappa is crappa.
But you were saying it in a very thick and bad French
accent. Oh, that's right. I was doing this French accent or something, which I can't do unless I guess I'm drunk as a skunk. Anyway, this is not good. Susan, it's terrible. And our children were there. We're all... this is not good. It's not good modeling behaviors.
Well, I don't know. One of my children doesn't
indulge at all.
Never even taken a drink. Perhaps that's exactly modeling.
That's right. It's that wonderful.
If you want your children to rebel, have them go in the right direction.
Yeah, you drink. I don't know. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, he didn't drink at all. Wow. Well, anyway, so enough of that.
Yeah.
So your I hesitate to get into the big story today because the big story here, and it's getting, I mean, I know the network news led with it last night, so it's not just here. It's the beginning of the trial in...
the next trial.
No, in State College, Pennsylvania.
Right.
The Sandusky trial.
Oh, the Sandusky trial. Oy. It's so awful. Ugh.
Did you read any? Did you see what the first witness, the first victim?
Yeah.
Well, I think people have no sense of what this crime is, and I thought that the testimony that was elicited yesterday by the prosecution was very, very informative to the rest of us who don't know.
Even.
Yeah, right. We don't know. What is it what is what? And this is...
What and how and why.
What in it?
From both sides.
Right.
It's important to understand it.
Yeah. And there was great need on both sides. When you say why, Sandusky clearly is a broken, damaged human being.
He's a sick puppy predator.
Right. And all he is capable of doing, I guess, is in terms of, who knows? I still don't quite get it. But for the child, he preyed on children who, as in this boy's case, had no father, had very little.
And some of the time, he was a very good dad.
Oh, he was wonderful. He brought him places. He gave him things. And the kid had no way of knowing, is this what a dad does? And he loved, and he openly admitted he loved so much of what was coming to him because of the love that Sandusky was showing him. He hated the love as it manifested itself physically. But I thought this young man, now he's 28, was incredibly brave and eloquent in what I have seen of his testimony, and
also amazingly accepting of himself.
Seemed to be.
I actually took heart from that. That he's owned what it was in him that allowed him to accept this, for good or bad.
Although throughout,
I think that's important to his healing too.
Right. Although throughout he put up. There were times when he would.
Oh,
fight.
When he hit back. Yeah.
He never had. He never let him penetrate him, although he tried on more than one occasion. Right. So this kid was able to fight back to a certain extent. And what's amazing is that even when he decides to get away from Sandusky clearly needing him, besotted or something, is writing like love letters to him, right? He's writing letters. Unbelievable. On Penn State stationery. How... in the name of God, do they think they're not going to convict this man?
But, all of this is, there's that side of it. And then there's the other side of it, and what's coming out with the emails of the president and the, who, for the sake of decency, kept their mouth shut.
The decency, what, toward him?
Yes.
Toward Sandusky. And never occurred to them about the children?
What is this flawed... It's as if the default position is that children are still chattel.
Yeah.
And they don't count.
They don't really count. They don't really count.
It is, like the definition of barely collateral damage.
It is quite conceivable, since the feds have turned over these emails to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office now, that you could see Graham Spanier, the former head of Penn State, charged and some of these other guys, the vice president and some of these others who've already, they're all out of work now, and some have been charged. I mean, you could see more charges brought. This is amazing. And apparently the perjury committed by one of the vice presidents, a guy named Schultz, it was so, I mean, every other word out of his mouth before the grand jury was a lie. What were these people thinking? I mean, these were intelligent men. These were men of, great stature and standing. God, it's just beyond belief to me. Now, the most extraordinary thing that I heard, and if this is the defense, then God help Sandusky. His defense attorney, Joe Amendola, said this to the jury. Jerry, in my opinion, loves kids so much he did things you and I wouldn't dream of doing. What?
Uh-oh.
That's his defense attorney.
Well, everybody's entitled to a defense, but if there simply isn't any, the guy's got to do what the guy's got to do.
Why would you want... God, I don't know why you would want that case. But
what I don't understand is why in
he's
the
fighting
face
it?
of nothing except a mountain of evidence, why is this not guilty plea going forward?
I know. Why isn't there? I think there were some discussions about a plea, a bargain, which would have spared all of these victims.
Yeah, my guess is he didn't want to accept the punishment that was part of that plea bargain.
Yeah, but the fact is, whatever punishment's coming is going to be worse than anything that was offered there. He ain't ever going to see
I think he's looking at the rest of his life.
That's right. He's never going to see. He's not going to be a free man for the rest of his life. The other unbelievable, disquieting testimony that came out of yesterday's trial, and it's underway again, by the way. God knows what people are hearing now. Was that clearly Sandusky's wife, Dottie,
knew or should have known.
No, knew.
Yeah, if she's asking what's going on in there,
the boys travel with him. There was time when the door to the bathroom, they were in the bathroom doing something. Dottie comes in. Also, his stepson or his son.
Foster son.
Foster son? Yeah. I think he has 6 adopted children. Whatever. Saw him getting soap on his hands when he had a kid in the shower, and he just, turned around and sort of ran. Also, another coach came into the shower once when he was in the shower with this boy and stayed and stayed and stayed until Sandusky and the kid left. Obviously thinking something's not right here, but still, that guy, too, didn't...
No,
he
all
saved
he
the
did was
child at that moment.
Occurrence.
Yeah, I just... Wow.
It's very, part of what this shows is how hard it is for honorable people to do the right thing. There's so much consequence to stepping forward that it, for whatever reason, stops these people from doing it.
Well, look at all these men who didn't do a thing.
And I just refuse to believe that they're all bad human beings.
No, I think that's true. Yeah.
And I honestly think it has something to do with, it being impolite to notice.
Well, because, and I remember Joe Paterno's son saying that in my father's generation, this no one ever spoke about anything sexual. I mean, you just didn't. These are things, and especially aberrant sexual behavior, never spoken of. And so they didn't even have a vocabulary. They weren't even sure that their eyes were seeing what they were seeing. There was an incredible almost innocence, which could help feed that kind of denial, even if they're seeing something. They know something isn't quite right, but maybe they don't even quite believe what they're seeing. Is that possible?
Or they go into such a state of panic that they can't do the right thing. I don't understand it, but I sure as hell can imagine it, and we're obviously seeing it.
Well, to me,
I don't know. I think what is it? NBC that runs these programs. What would you do? I mean, they did one, I think it was last week, where they had signs of a missing child up all over the place and then parade the missing child with a man in front of people that they know have seen the thing and see who, if anybody, intervenes. And I think there was like one person that took a look, walked outside, and called 911. Other people walked away. And when asked why, one woman said, "I wasn't sure. I was afraid I was wrong." Then what?
You know, I've often...
And then another person just burst into tears that, they had behaved so, even in their own head, what they did was wrong, and they did it anyway.
I've often wondered when I see pictures up, or those shows, if you see this child or this man, and I'll look, and I don't know, it's just maybe something about me, but I think if I saw that person, if I were to walk, right after seeing this, if I walked out the door.
You wouldn't be sure.
I never would be sure, because I don't have good facial recognition apparatus, whatever it is that does that, as anyone who, knows me knows, but I'm always amazed when people can pick somebody out and say, "I saw that person. I saw them." It's amazing. I don't think everybody has the ability to keep a face like that in their head and then to...
Well, alternatively, we know that, for example, eyewitness accounts are frequently wrong.
Frequently.
So we are correct to
Doubt.
mistrust what we think we see. So it's extremely complicated, and how far out you take this, you unreel the responsibility. Part of it just has to be, at some point, we have to rely on our conscience to take over when society can't. But we can't really be punishing all the way down the line here, I don't think. Not unless we're prepared to look at ourselves and ask, really?
Huh.
Would you have picked up the phone? Really?
Well, I think we tend to be pretty kind to ourselves about these things. We assume, because we can't put ourselves really in that position.
That's right.
We don't have the adrenaline going. We don't have the shock. We don't have the reality.
No, I mean, I don't have any problem with pursuing the actor. And I don't have any problem with pursuing people that, in their attempts to cover up his actions, broke the law.
That's right. So the president, vice president,
but
all these guys.
But I do have a problem with what I see as the unwinding of how far the responsibility goes. And because the farther it gets away, the more it is understandable that it is in the law. Nobody has a duty to act. We have just begun imposing that duty, and only in these kinds of particular cases.
Well, the only people who have a duty
are
Susan,
people.
But no, nobody. So an average person knowing abuse is happening does not have a duty.
Well, but that is being.
I know teachers do and doctors
change.
do, and
previously no.
Right.
It's like you don't have there is no requirement that you go to the aid of somebody that you see needs your help. That's why, remember what was that woman's name who was murdered in the streets of New York all those
Kitty
decades ago
Genovese
with help and all the people that hurt her,
Yeah.
and nobody lifted a finger and nobody did anything?
Right. Kitty Genovese. But and that story has repeated itself so many times since. It's ridiculous that people hear
but in the
screams
law, the reason in this case it's different, because in this case we have begun to codify that there is a requirement to report. So in instances of child abuse, either, sexual or otherwise, there is beginning to be a positive requirement on the parts of only certain people, however. School authorities, doctors, nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else.
Not neighbors.
Not
Passers-by, people who happen to see, family members, blah, blah, blah. No.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not pretending to know how all of these laws read, but I do know that when they try and make it go further than that, it becomes a problem. And they're having a hard time even enforcing against the people that they're requiring.
Right.
It's difficult.
Well, God, the only good, if you're looking for any silver lining here, it's that, again, as you noted earlier, this is extraordinarily informative and, one of those mass teachable moments for a lot lot of people about what this is, what this crime is.
This is our general reaction. Perhaps it helps teach us it is okay to pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm. Or to be a little more savvy when you see things. You see things that, your gut says something ain't, that doesn't look right.
Yeah, even if all you can do is to say, leave that kid alone.
Yeah, is that kid yours? What's your relationship? Or talk to the kid. But even then, these kids are so scared and so intimidated and so needy. Oh, God. So, imagine. I mean, what do we have? 14 victims that we're aware of here, and you can bet there's many more.
Well, and then to see this duplicated at Horace Mann.
Well, that's something. I have not read that article, but I know the New York Times has done a big story on.
Well, now there's a big,
That's a big.
To do about it.
That's a hugely important private prep school
in New York.
In New York, and they've discovered that more than
widespread sexual abuse from
faculty members and staff to the boys. Over how many years?
And over a period of years, such that it suggests, much like in the church, a culture.
A culture that you just learn that this is here's how we do it here at Horace Mann. Wow. Yeah. Well, okay. You got anything else about this? Because I need to move on.
No.
It's just so awful.
No, I mean, I am so up to my eyeballs with salacious details of one private life or another. I can't take it. From Edwards to this poor Mary Kennedy and her poor husband, whatever the truth is, all of these things. It's just like, why are we treated to every single awful detail of these
Well,
people's
I'll tell
lives?
you why, because you're gobbling them up.
Ugh.
I mean, we can't for our, even though we're appalled, we're it's like watching a car wreck. We can't help. Chuck writes, having a daughter at Penn State, I am thankful this trial is happening after the end of the school year, and I am hoping it's over. It's going to be by the time the students return. Certainly, there is nothing worse than the abuse these victims endured, but the pain of this entire fiasco is far-reaching, and the students currently enrolled are not unaffected. I'm hoping campus life returns to normal this fall. I don't know. No, Penn State's got a lot of, I don't think this thing just goes away. These campuses are like organisms. This organism has been harmed. It is now under incredible stress, and these things linger.
And this is what an institution attempting to repair itself looks like. I mean, your daughter's going to live through that. But I don't know. Having sent 2 kids through 2 different colleges, there's one thing or another that happens, that shapes their lives always during that time. You can't, this is what launching your kids looks like. You can't protect them from this stuff.
Well, the parents of kids at the University of Pittsburgh this spring had those kids had an incredible situation to deal with that really impacted them in a much more direct way than what's happened to the students at Penn State, in that these bomb threats that were called in as many as 6, 7, 8, 9 times a day.
Well, it was literally stealing money out of their pockets.
It took, the school is in no way, no grades from that semester are really, nobody fails, they couldn't count it. Everybody was so under duress. So, there's no doubt that these, hey kids, welcome to the world. And I think, I'm always saying, most education occurs outside a classroom. The education you get in a classroom is peripheral to the education of being out in the world. To the
life lessons of negotiating the world on your own.
Right.
And it's important.
Yeah. Okay, let's get a little break in here and then come back. And Suze, I got some other. There's no end to the possibilities of things we can talk about, but I'm going to move on into a little easier conversation after the break. Okay, we'll be back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
You in the City and Hosanna House Summer Nights present Jazz Under the Stars, starring Najee, Friday, July 13th, 8 p.m. at the Sherwood Event Center in Wilkinsburg. Tickets available at Dorsey's, Stediford's, or charge by phone at 1-800-383-5760. Najee, live in concert July 13th. Proceeds benefit Hosanna House, a place called Hope.
Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
Gustavo and Vela wants to thank all of southwestern Pennsylvania, the USA, and the world for helping to liberate his native country of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea has suffered 43 years of dictatorship, 43 years of human rights abuses, 43 years of corruption, and 43 years of kleptocracy. Even with $5 billion in oil revenue in 2011, the 700,000 citizens of Equatorial Guinea earn less than $2 per day. A proud Mount Lebanon resident, please help Gustavo and Vela usher in the 21st century by allowing freedom, democracy, and socioeconomic prosperity by the rule of law for the next 43 years and beyond. Email him at presidentandvela@yahoo.com to help free Equatorial Guinea.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Somebody has asked if I have any comment on the passing of Ron Morris, who, Susan, you didn't know this man. He had a fascinating life. He's a guy who just made tons of money and then blew it. You know how people do that? They come into a ton of money. He was a millionaire in his, I think, late 20s, early 30s. And then, of course, he started gambling and drinking and partying and this and that, and he lost everything. Then he comes back again and makes another $1 million, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, there's some people that are just
good at making money.
And so he started. He was known. He had a radio. Little bit of a network here called the American Entrepreneur, and he, I think, endowed either a chair or a part of, I think, Duquesne University that does where entrepreneurialism is taught. And, he righted himself in terms of his, the gambling, got it under control, although he was always a recovering, addict. That's something that doesn't go away. And I guess he was able to take that need to take risk for a possible payoff and just do it that's what an entrepreneur is, I guess. I mean, he sort of embodied that aspect of it, the risk-taking of entrepreneurism. He created jobs, he destroyed jobs, he that, and from the time I knew him, he was an amazingly energetic man. I mean, he's just one of those people who blows indoors. He didn't just walk in a door; he blew in the door, and full of there was like an electricity coming off him all the time. And the whole time I knew him, when there was this electricity coming off him, he was fighting for his life. He had the same cancer that Steve Jobs had, and I thought he was a goner 10 years ago. But he wasn't. He just kept... He was amazing in that regard. Just fought back all the time. But it finally got him. And Ron, in a funny way, it wasn't just his doing, but Ron had the bright idea. He had a show on the same station. I had a show, WPTT. And his show, I think, was on the weekend. Whatever, he had so much money, and I think sometimes he didn't know what to do with it. He could almost burn it. He decided that he had an idea. He always had ideas, and he went to the owner of the radio station and said, hey, let me just buy. I will pay you. I will essentially rent your air all day, and I will put programming on it. And the station went for that because they were able to make money, have no employment costs at all. Ron essentially took the station over, put all business programming on it, hence costing me my job. And that's the last good radio job I had, and out I went. So I've always had slightly mixed feelings about that. They changed the call letters from WPTT to WMNY, money, and the ratings plunged, and he just kept throwing more and more and more into it because he had the money. He had the money. And he did try to get me to come back about a year or two later. He called and said, how about if you come back, give you your 3 hours? And I said, well, I'm not going to do business talk. It's not what I do. He said, well, just sort of weave it in. You could do your old show. I said, no, forget it. I'm not going to. But that's the last time I had spoken with him. Anyway, somebody wanted to know my thoughts. My thoughts are, he was a gutsy character. He was an interesting character. He was a real character. But I didn't have a real personal relationship with him. And the fact is
he cost you your job.
He cost me my job. Now, you could also say the owner of the station is the one who cost me my job. He went for it. He said, yeah, sure, let's do this, and out I went, and out Doug Hirth went, and we all disappeared. And Doug's now gone. Doug died. Ron's dead. It's just, I don't know. And life goes on. Oobla dee, oobla da. So there you have it. My sympathies to his wife and his, I think, relatively young children. He was 62, I believe. What? But packed a ton of, lifetimes into that. He was one of those software multimillionaires. That was the first big thing. His first big bunch of money that he blew totally. And then he just kept coming back. He kept It's amazing. I guess there are people like that, right? Their heads just can't turn off. They're just bzzz all the time. Wired. So.
It's interesting that two people who are very much alike in that regard both got the same disease.
Well, the obituary said he worshipped Jobs. And when he found out that Jobs was diagnosed with the same thing he had, it made him even more amazed. He felt that closeness. And when Jobs died, according to his wife, he was distraught. And I can't even imagine Ron distraught. He's like one of those guys who never comes down. We just wouldn't come down, but that rattled him. Because I think he thought, if Jobs couldn't beat this, maybe I can't. Who knows? I don't know. But so.
Well, it's hard to ignore at the very least.
Yeah.
And if you combine it with a real personal,
but you're saying how
it's hard.
Yeah. But you're saying how odd that these two men with somewhat the same
got this
temperament, can't stay still, minds going wildly, making tons of money. Yeah, I don't know. So, anyway, that was a lot packed into his life, a lot, and I don't know. I just wow. Okay. So, Suze, speaking of illness, did you happen to read, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, maybe Saturday or Sunday. Saturday.
Probably not.
Okay. There is, and I guess it's taken from a book that this guy has written. He's a doctor, and he's a doctor who started wondering if animals got the same kinds of diseases we had. And I mean, up to a certain extent, he knew that, but is there something we could learn, that a physician could learn from veterinarians? Are we all dealing essentially with the same kind of thing?
And are we failing to share information?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, he starts looking into this and is blown away. Be it mental illness, be it physical illness, be it addictive behaviors, be it obesity, cancer. It is unbelievable how, yes, all of the things that we deal with are dealt with also in the animal kingdom. And it's easier to study animals, right, than to study ourselves. So,
only because you don't get their consent.
That's right. Right. So he started asking, why don't we doctors who deal with humans routinely cooperate with doctors who treat animals?
Well, because humans forget or refuse to admit that they are animals.
That's right. And so in the course of all this, he comes upon an in-joke that veterinarians tell themselves, which is, one veterinarian will say to another, what do you call a physician? And the answer is, a veterinarian who treats only one species.
Right.
Right. So vets treat all species. Doctors treat just the one. And the fact is, they're all treating the same things. And as this guy says, when we underappreciate our own animal natures, we are really limiting ourselves in terms of, taking care of a lot of these things. So there's some fascinating information in here. He always assumed that animals in the wild, he noted that animals that humans take into their environment, dogs, cats, blah, 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 tend to get fat, right? They get obese.
Sure.
We look at our animals, they're all fat like we are. You know, I look at my fish. I got fish in a pond. They're obese. I've tried.
They don't get enough exercise.
I'm feeding them too much.
Yeah, and you're feeding them too much.
I'm feeding them too much. So he figured that animals in the wild would never be obese because animals would eat what they needed and then move on. And turns out that's not correct. Animals in the wild will get plenty obese if there's a constant source of food.
Yes.
They'll eat and eat and eat. In fact, they're wired to eat when there's food there because you never know when the food won't be there.
No, well, that was like the coyote that was eating all the dogs in my neighborhood. Coyotes usually look like these scraggly, thin, mangy, ugly dog-like things. This guy looked like a lion.
Because he was eating all those Shih Tzus.
He was filled out. He walked around like he was, the
king of the universe,
king
right?
of the tribe.
Well,
and he ate a lot.
He ate every little dog in the neighborhood.
He ate every little animal he could find.
Okay.
Tried to kill my dog twice.
So he points out that our pets, now that they're obese, have all the same problems we have. They're getting diabetes. They have heart problems. They have, terrible skeletal disorders because their joints can't take the added weight. They're glucose intolerant. They get cancers, high blood pressure. Absolutely identical to the same thing, which is why you now have these specialty veterinarian, hospitals that have all the same specialists that we ourselves want, right? Because our pets are just like us. But left to their own devices.
It's also why there's pet insurance.
That's right. That's right. Now there's pet insurance. So here's an animal nutrition expert says, all animals, that includes us, are hardwired to consume resources in excess of our daily requirements. I can't think of a species that doesn't. Any animal, human or otherwise, with access, unfettered access to food is going to eat it. And you wonder why we're obese. Because we live in an environment in which food is constantly available. And even if you're not hungry, you are treated to constant stimulation of pictures of it, of other people eating, of unbelievable don't you wants. And it's more amazing, actually, that anyone manages to keep a healthy weight in our environment.
That's right, which is really why, we're all held, hostage by the Supreme Court here because we really need health insurance for all of these obese people.
Yeah, we really do, because we've created a culture in which most people will be obese. In fact, most people are obese, and they will continue to get obese.
And it will continue to be,
Right.
also a class-linked issue because the wealthier people, might be eating as much, but they belong to health clubs and they exercise and they do, they counteract it and have the money to do that.
Yes, and they might have. They also belong to a small group in which the social status is
yes, it's not accepting of the weight.
It's not accepting of fat,
the thinner,
and
the
so
better.
you have to stay thin. You have to stay thin, or you're looked at as some terrible person. But here's another.
But it's the same thing. It's precisely because we live in a culture where everybody has food, that being heavy is no longer a sign of status.
That's right. Exactly. It used to be the poor people who were thin and the rich people who were fat, and we flipped that now. We have flipped that. So, but here's another interesting thing they're finding out. They're finding out that blue whales off the coast of California, rats in Maryland, marmots in the Rockies, all are getting fatter and fatter. A lot of animals in the wild are getting fatter and fatter, and these are not animals that are necessarily, seeing access to more food, but they're finding it, they're eating it whenever they can. It's not quite clear, but what's making them fatter if in fact the supply of food isn't that much greater? And here's something interesting they're coming up with.
Can I guess?
You're not going to get it. Go ahead.
That there is stuff, for example, in the water that's leaching out of our ecosystem, like artificial sweeteners and the such, that are stimulating their appetites.
Well, that sounds good. That's not what I'm about to say, but that's certainly, God knows. But it has to do with our environment changing their environment. But
right.
It's
in
not
one way or another.
Here's what it is. Light. This is so odd. They are finding out that light coming into an animal's eyes plays a very big role, although generally unrecognizing, in determining how big you're going to be. I mean, how fat or how thin. Light, okay, so the more light, I guess, you take in, the more it's light out, the more your body tends to hold on to fat. Don't ask me. Light pollution from urban sprawl, big city sky glow, electronic billboards, stadium lights, all of that has so brightened what used to be a dark sky that they think this is part of why animals are getting fatter. If you put a bunch of rats in a, cage and subject them to constant lighted conditions, don't let their circadian rhythm with night coming on, darkness and light, if you screw that up, what was natural, and instead put in this more light, those rats get fat. Even with the same amount of food. Their BMIs, their body mass indexes, go way up. Their blood sugar levels go up. And isn't that fascinating? We got a caller?
It is fascinating.
Okay, hang on. Hello?
Hello, Clarence from Canonsburg.
Clarence from Canonsburg.
When you talked about the light and animals getting fatter, two things popped into my head. One, I'm thin because I'm cheap and the electric lights are always off. And two, winter and summer. You know how when there's more light in the summer, and most animals will eat a lot, to gain body weight and fat to survive through the winter.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the first thing that popped into my head as to the possibility of why that's happening.
Right.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Well, it goes along with hibernation too.
Yeah, exactly. With hibernation.
Exactly.
And most human beings are actually built that way. That you're, coming out of the plains of Africa, where during the summer, spring months when food was aplenty, you ate a lot, and you were barely surviving through the winter, but you basically lived off your own body fat. And now, since we can constantly eat, the fat just stays there. You never have to live off of it.
So,
calories in, calories out.
That's it. But
yeah.
Gosh, it's I don't know. I can't. This guy, I guess, is gonna putting all this in a book, but it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I always get talked about when I tell people I only eat once or twice a day. Well, that's not healthy. I said I only eat what I need. I sit on my butt at a computer all day. I'm not like working at a coal mine. I'm not burning off much stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good for you. Meanwhile, the rest of us are blowing up like balloons.
Not all of us.
Yeah, I always tell people, I say, well, I have, visuals of family members to not do what they did.
Sure, yeah.
On everything.
Yeah.
Like Susan's son not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I know that drinking was a bad thing for my relatives, so I decided not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Eating too much was a bad thing for my relatives. I'm out of 8 kids, I'm literally the only one without high blood pressure.
Wow.
Yeah. So I changed the lifestyle that gave the relatives high blood pressure. What I ate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, don't rub it in, Mr. Self-Righteous. Go back
I'm
to
not
your
trying to rub it in. I'm
dark
just
little
stating,
den. Yeah.
Facts of my life.
Go eat your, granola.
I don't eat granola. I'll eat a cheeseburger in a second and fries. But that'll be the only thing I eat during the whole day. That will be it.
Okay.
Done.
Okay. What a novel idea. You're only eating what you need.
Yeah.
Bye, Clarence.
Okay. Have a good rest of the week.
You too. Bye.
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 Okay, I guess I got to get a break in here. But when we come back, I want to talk about this other aspect, addiction in animals. Because animals are every bit as prone to addiction as we are. It's amazing. We are no different. Not a bit. Okay, in a minute.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Pittsburgh City Paper's health issue is available now. Pick up one today for Girl Talk, Bruce Hornsby, The Dirty Dozen Brass Band, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor, give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the City Theater, Symphony, History Museum, and the Carnegie Museums. Check out this week's big deal featuring 50% off tickets to the Carnegie Science Center. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's only online deal site where the deals don't expire. bergbargains.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All righty, talking to my sister Susan. Susan, so I just want you to know that, that any animal last night who had been with you and had access would have had one too many grappa, too.
I feel so much better now.
So, the animal world is just filled with, and we know this. As a matter of fact, I remember interviewing a psychopharmacologist about 25 years ago. It was fascinating. And he talked about the way man found these plants and things that would alter their consciousness was by watching the animals. And they'd see, hey, look, the sheep are eating that stuff again, and now they're rolling around and happy as can be. Maybe we should try eating that. It's really pretty much how it happened. So, birds are known to.
Well, let me just interrupt for you. That's the whole concept of the tasters. If the animal can eat something and not drop dead,
right,
then it's safe for us to eat.
Right. And if they look like they're having a hell of a good time afterwards, all the more reason. Wallabies in Australia have broken into fields where medical opium was growing, eating the sap and getting stoned and just, coming back over and over again. Bighorn sheep have been known to grind their teeth to the gums trying to scrape hallucinogenic lichen off boulders in the Canadian Rockies. Siberian reindeer are always foraging for magic mushrooms. There was a story that went national on NPR of a Cocker Spaniel in Texas. Did you ever hear this story?
No.
Lady. Her name was Lady. She was a lovely little Cocker Spaniel. And then one day when she was out, in the backyard and they had a little pond, she came on a toad and she was sniffing the toad and sort of licking the toad. And it turns out that the toad, the kind of toad, had a hallucinogenic toxin on its skin. It's a cane toad, it's called.
Yeah.
So lady came back into the house and, started looking odd. She was like looking at things that weren't there and just generally glassy-eyed. And the next time her owners let her out, she made a beeline for the pond and started licking toads. She became like, you could not keep her from the toads. She would lick them so hard that she actually sucked the pigment out of their skin. And she said she went from being this sweet, friendly little Cocker Spaniel to a deranged drug addict. Disoriented, withdrawn, glassy-eyed, blah, blah, blah. But they're saying, yeah, I know, poor lady. Yeah, it was that damn toad. The urge to use something that alters one's consciousness, it says, has stayed in the gene pool of all animals for millions of years. And for a counterintuitive reason, according to this guy. Because although addiction can destroy, the thing that its existence may have promoted survival. And he goes into a very long explanation of why that is true. But it's too complicated. I'm not going to go into it.
Well, but it has to. It seems to me that it's informative because it says that all animals experience pleasure.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. It does have to do with brain chemistry, with the fact that all animals seek pleasure. And pleasure is gotten from all the behaviors which keep us alive. Pleasure is gotten from sex, right? Pleasure is gotten from food, right? Pleasure is gotten from companionship. Pleasure is gotten from all of the things that allow the species to survive. So when licking toads kicks off the same stuff, pleasure seeking, why would you not think that's a good idea too?
But you'd think that the dog would learn to recognize the proper kind of toad.
Well, what do you mean? No, he did. He knew what toad he wanted.
Oh, he only found the right toads, okay.
He only liked the toads that had the toxin. Poor lady. Must be a she. Okay, and
did you see the study about dogs and empathy?
No.
No, yeah. Well, it turns out, to no one's surprise, that dogs are incredibly empathic.
Yeah.
But if you put a dog in a room with a crying person, a laughing person, and a just sort of passive person, the dog almost always will go directly to the crying person. And try to comfort. After that, they'll go to the laughing person, and then after that, they the one that exhibits no emotion is last. But the dog seems to actually feel service and empathy and wanting to do something.
Is there a person who had an animal, a dog when they were a kid, who doesn't have the same experience of saying
I know, right? I
he
remember
or she
that
always knew.
If I were crying, which happened almost daily, as I recall, that dog would find me wherever I was, and sit with me, and
right.
Just be with me.
That's right. They're just born caregivers. They're born to love.
And it also explains why my dog was such a good babysitter. I had a woman who helped me clean my house and who had a baby that she would bring with her and sit in a little seat on the floor and she'd just go about her business. And Napoleon, my dog, would sit right next to this child and watch her. Mm-hmm. And if he thought the mother were gone too long, he would go running and get the mother and bring her back to the baby and say, "You check in here. This is too much of a responsibility for me."
Yeah.
And then he'd sit there.
Yeah.
After she left again, he'd do it all day. He would babysit that baby all day.
Yeah. Okay, one more little fact, and then we're done. Breast cancer. It strikes mammals, all kinds. Cougars, kangaroos, llamas, sea lions, whales, anything. They get it. But there's one group of mammals that it almost never happens in. I mean, where the incidence of breast cancer is so rare, it doesn't even, I mean, it's stunning when one of these animals gets breast cancer. And you know what group of animals it is?
Cows.
You're such a smarty pants.
Yeah, you know why? Because they're milked regularly.
Any lactating animal, cows, dairy cows, and goats, animals that make milk for a living, have rates of breast cancer that are so low as to be statistically insignificant.
Right. No, I mean, one of the causes of breast cancer is not breastfeeding.
Right. So women who breastfeed or have breastfed are supposedly, I mean, they're more protected. Not that you're totally protected, but more protected. And I mean, jeez.
But I think it's even somewhat different than that. I think it's women whose body told them to lactate and who resisted the urge, who have that problem because the milk gets their ducts get
plugged up
with unused milk in it, and something happens. And the only reason I know this is because I know of a woman who the doctor said that was the cause.
Yeah. Well, I got news for you, though. The women most at risk are Jewish women of Ashkenazi descent, which is us.
Yeah, well, I breastfed.
I know, but I didn't. So, look, no, but there's something because there's a gene that we carry more than any other group. But that same gene is found in mammals who also get, pretty high rates of breast cancer. Right. So,
well, I mean, that's the other thing that they're finding that, across mammals, there are so many common genes that the way we differ is very little.
Right. Exactly right. So, all righty. Well, this was...
Oh, gee, it's late. I have a meeting.
Okay, well, you feel better?
I do.
I think you should be hungover more often because I think...
I'm feeling slightly less grappa-like.
Okay. I think you were actually more articulate and engaged today than is usually the case, Susan.
Well, good.
I think you should get smashed every Monday night.
Will do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye. All righty. Tomorrow we'll have Chris Potter aboard, and we'll talk some more. Have a great day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.